Okay, good. Happy New Year. Good morning, good afternoon, dear viewers, friends, and colleagues. So we start the new year, and our guest today is Dr. Angela Lee. She's joining us from Toronto, Canada, and she's my colleague from my previous work at Sanofi. So I know Angela for almost 10 years now. She joined in 2015, and we had since then we worked on several projects together. So the samples were tested for her team, and it was fantastic time. So Angela got her PhD at University of Toronto, and she joined Sanofi as a scientist manager, and since then progressed to principal scientist now and focusing mainly on CMC. Angela, it's great to see you. Happy New Year. Welcome to the channel. Looking forward for our discussion.
Thank you, Marina, for that introduction. It's great to be on the show with you and really great to reconnect. And I'm looking forward to our discussion today. And Happy New Year to yourself and the audience who are listening.
Fantastic. So, Angela will be talking about sustainability and CMC, AI and digital application for drug development. And so, considering that you worked in CMC for more than 10 years now, I know that your career is shifting towards applications of AI and digital technology for drug development. Could you please tell us how did that happen? What inspired you to move that direction? And what led you to where you are today? The floor is
Right.
yours.
So that's a good question. Thank you for that. So I think it would go back to my background back in grad school, where, I studied biochemistry and biophysics, where my study involved using biophysical method, namely X-ray crystallography, to solve protein structures. And that's also where I guess I got my first exposure to in silico simulations, which is molecular dynamic simulations simulating protein dynamics. And so using a combination of experimental and in silico methods to inform engineering mutations in these proteins to achieve the desired properties. For example, enhancing protein stability or modifying its function. And after my PhD, I knew I wanted to career in the industry so that I can tackle real world problems. And that's how I got into Sanofi. Well, not just because it was one of the largest biopharma R&D player in Canada, but it was also that I was very inspired by its mission that no one should suffer from vaccine preventable disease. So majority of Sanofi operation in Canada is the vaccine. So we're in the vaccines division. And I just love the idea of using my knowledge and skill set to contribute to that mission. And so, how I got into modeling, well, when I got into Sanofi, as you mentioned, I was in this department called Chemistry, Manufacturing, and Control, so CMC development, and I've been there for 10 years. So here, our job is to take the antigen target that was selected by early research, and we develop that into a scalable bioprocess. So I truthfully, I think that CMC is kind of overlooked in the drug development cycle as a whole. There's a lot of focus on early research, identifying and selecting the antigen candidate, and there's a lot of focus on clinical studies. I just feel like CMC is kind of overlooked in this process. But what we do, in case that you don't know, is that we take the target, the sequence, for example, the sequence of protein, and then um, we make a process to produce it. So, for example, you would have cell culture. And then you would have a series of downstream unit operations consisting of chromatography and filters in order to fish out the target from the soup of intracellular and extracellular um, particles of the cells that you expressed it in. So yeah, so in order to come up with such a sequence, it's actually it's quite complicated because there are different raw materials and different buffers that you need to screen and media and then scale up considerations. There's a lot of basically the design space is massive. And so this is where knowing that, the process of coming up with such a sequence, it used to be very much artisanal. People rely on mainly experience. And it was about a decade ago with the emergence of high throughput automation, such as automated liquid handling system, miniaturizing bioreactors. That's when things started to change, and this allowed us to screen many different raw materials and process conditions in a more data-driven way. And that's also the time that I started to join Sanofi, and then pretty soon it dawned on me that data science is actually quite critical in process development because a bioprocess like these process systems, bioreactor or chromatography, these are complex high-dimensional system, and biologics is also very complex. So each unit operation can be influenced by a dozen of parameters. So in order to find your optimal design space and to control that and to precisely scale it up the way that you see the performance in the small system and scale that up to maintain the same performance in the larger scale, it requires the control of dozens of parameters. And these parameters often have complex interactions among them. So this complexity would require more intelligent experimental design and analysis methods. And that's what led me to teach myself statistical methods and design of experiments like DOE to better plan and interpret my experiments. And then that progressed to in the more recent years as it evolves, there's the rise of advanced analytics in the industry. And I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to explore these advanced methods and then see the immense potential that these methods have for optimizing processes and controlling its robustness and control the precision and scale up. So yeah, these methods range from data-driven machine learning methods to more mathematical, we call it mechanism modeling methods, or everything that's in between. And since I'm in your channel, and your channel is about sustainable innovation, sustainability. So I guess in the CMC context, I see that digital and AI technology would enhance sustainability by enabling development and scale up of bioprocess faster with fewer experiments and less waste. And with each experiment that we do, we learn more information about them. So we achieve more with less.
That's great. And I think the visual was very, very helpful. For those who are savvy about it, it's just fresh refresher and a nice reminder for those who, just new to the channel or basically new to the biopharmaceuticals. That's great introduction. To see the evolution from early stage development, which may happen at university, at small company, at biotech company, all the way to the, upscaling and developing the process, which again could be biotech and pharmaceuticals together, or it could be straight into a large pharmaceutical company such as Sanofi and going forward from there. I was about to ask you that questions, how you see that the AI and digital, in fact, you already mentioned that, and digital technology transforming vaccine and drug development right now. You mentioned waste cutting, contributing to sustainability that way, but beyond that, like, what would be your thoughts?
Right. So there's definitely a lot of investment and a lot of work that's going into that space from end to end, from early research to, it's actually mainly happening in the early research and clinical. And And I think it's somewhat also driven by the COVID period, with some of the mRNA vaccine, the AI played a role in that, either in, optimizing supply chain or, selecting clinical trial sites. And that's where it all took off, really. And well, in general, these days, I think the saying is that in pharma companies, your data strategy is becoming just as important as your pipeline strategy. Um, that's because drug development, we're seeing that it is getting increasingly expensive and slow. It's taking over a decade. I think it was 10 to 15 years to develop a drug and over $1 billion. The latest number is 2.2 billion to develop a new drug. So that's very slow and expensive. And the failure rate is also very high. It's like something like 90% or 80%. This means that we need to reinvent the way that we do drug development. Um, and digital and AI technology, people are trying to see how that can help us in the industry to make drug development more sustainable and to invent medicine faster for the patients. And so for drug discovery, for example, when we're trying to discover a new molecule, it's basically we are taking the risk of guessing on streaming some of the key questions that are very slow and expensive to test out later on, such as, will the drug produce the desired effect in humans? Is this the right target? And then is it going to be safe and effective? And once you have the molecule, is it going to even be producible, right? The developability and the manufacturability, and that's more relevant to CMC and manufacturing. So, so first of all, discovering molecules. I think currently many drug molecules, they are designed by tweaking upon existing molecules through homology to existing drugs, and that tends to produce incremental improvement. So there's a lot of excitement that AI will revolutionize that process. For example, maybe we'll be able to discover de novo proteins, molecules that we've never seen before in biology, tailored for specific biological effects. There's a lot of investment going to train AI models on biological data sets, like what they are doing in Chan Markberg BioHub, to predict, disease biology and to predict how human cells behave and disease pathways. So in the future, scientists could test therapies in the hope is that we can test these therapies in silico before we do the experimentation, right? So we may not completely eliminate the need for experimentation. We might still need the experimentation to validate and to verify the predictions. But what it can do is improving the efficiency and increasing the chance of designing the right molecule right first time.
Yeah, that's remarkable because you can test the conditions, you can basically tailor it, and so have rather than basically very random, you're going into more targeted approach, more strategic. So strategizing on one hand, and another one using different tactics, like you said, using the in silico modeling the disease, modeling the responses. So it's definitely a great advantage, and I think it's coming from, I guess, previous knowledge, right? Like collective knowledge that scientists accumulated over years with the cell structures and stuff to get to the point where we're now. But nevertheless, each
Yes.
case could be depending on checking in real life, like whether it's working or not. So real data always
Yeah. I think
always
it's
helps.
collectively this mindset shift, the paradigm shift, where we used to be more passively, try to, find out, oh, this doesn't work, and then we're gonna go back to fix it. It's more, and right now we're being more proactive in this
Yes.
approach, right? To predict the problem before it happens. So going
And I
from,
think
yeah,
definitely, yeah. And I also see like from what you just said is the previously more desire to do things on our own. I mean, each company does their own thing and then going towards developing the medicine and then commercializing and so forth. But now it's beyond that, right? It's sometimes you see across industry interactions, consortiums, you see work together with the universities. It's more like, people coming together. It's like basically more crowdsourcing, if you will, to solve certain aspects and going beyond the competition that we're normally kind of focusing on. It's yes, like you said, having more maybe the idea behind it, like we serve patient, right? Thinking about patients, so how to reach that. But of course, economical aspect is always there. So I think with AI, if collectively we're getting there faster, it's enabling different companies in different ways, and there's still a room for everybody to succeed, even if the competition is fierce. There is enough market and there is enough of unmet medical need
that's
step
true.
in,
Yeah.
to step in and to flourish with a new medical, new drugs, new vaccines. It's like if we go back to CMC, so how do you see the AI and digital technology changing the landscape of CMC space compared to our traditionally, concept of CMC development for the vaccines or
Right.
for drugs?
Yeah, so I guess I'll go back to emphasize the importance of CMC, because it's actually, I think the number is that CMC takes up 1/5 of the overall drug development cost. So meaning that it's non-trivial, and especially when you go from early discovery into the preclinical development, the IND CTA enabling studies, this is the phase where the cost increase. In this phase, CMC is often on a critical path just because we're responsible for supplying that first material, the drug substance, drug product for these preclinical studies. Demonstrating the stability, formulating it for safe dosing, and developing the analytical assays, which is what you do for releasing the material to be used. There's a lot to do in that very short period of time, and if CMC development is lagging behind on timeline, it can hold up the entire program. So improving CMC development, that can have a big impact on overall success. So I think AI and digital technology can be a huge help in de-risking and speeding up CMC. From a sustainability perspective, we're not just talking about green labs, like eco-friendly materials or reducing raw materials. That's what we often talk about. Those are very good. And a lot of the waste, though, is actually coming from the waste of time and resource, of inefficient experimentation, and then having to rework the experiments or troubleshoot the problems late stage that we didn't see earlier on. So if we can get this process right first time, and then we can save these experimentation. For example, instead of doing 100 experiments to find the right process condition, we can do 20 intelligently chosen ones with the help of predictive models and digital technology that's saving of materials, energy, and time. We're definitely seeing that cultural shift where CMC teams are increasingly embracing data and automation more than ever. And at Sanofi, we talk about being at the forefront of the next industrial revolution to leverage advanced analytics, automation, data science, machine learning to modernize the way we work. So with this mindset, which is like spreading across the industry, for sure that digital technology will reshape the industry and CMC and manufacturing landscape.
That's fantastic.
So
I
yeah.
think, yes, before I ask next question, maybe we can go back to the CMC visual. And I just want to say, to reiterate your words is that Here in the United Arab Emirates, I visited several conferences in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi, and often you hear the shift from biotech into tech bio, meaning that we're going with modeling, we're going with development of the AI, with analyzing existing data, what's available already in public space, sometimes with access to the private databases, to be more prepared, to strategize, to really have a AI tool, or use modeling in general, to be more prepared in our choices, more strategic, more kind of consolidated. It's waste less time. And this is something that, becomes very like a highlight. And you hear it at other conferences as well, like my colleagues from here who visited. So it's a trend. So you're absolutely right there. One more question is, how do you think this will reform the way we work in CMC and drug development, vaccine development in general?
Right. So, first of all, I absolutely agree with the shift from biotech to tech bio. It's a transformation we're seeing in the CMC and bioprocess industry, in general, as companies increasingly try to drive, efficiency and shorter timelines and lower cost and
Mm,
sustainability.
mm,
And going back, that's imperative for us to go back to um, reimagine the way we do things, going back to the engineering and leveraging these advanced analytics and newer technology, digital technology to transform the way that we work. Um, yeah, so I think with any industry, you start with doing things in a more artisanal way, and then
yes.
you try to automate it, standardize it. Eventually you automate. That's gonna have to happen. So, in terms of what needs to happen, there's first thing, it's important to treat data as an asset, and which is something that's already happening. That's in Sanofi, this is well underway, where we try to structure our data, standardize it, connect it, um, invest in data management systems, and we are well on our way to that. But another thing that's also very important is having the right data set for these advanced
Yes.
analytics that we want to use, right? Because a lot of the times during development, the data from these experiments that we typically do, they are not originally meant for advanced analytics. So
Mm,
they may not be suitable for modeling. So we might need to, we will need a paradigm shift, or we might just have to go back to fundamental technology studies to design these experiments specifically to build those data sets, to fill in the knowledge gap and develop those models that we need. And then once we have the data set, then we can use it to build models to guide our development. And as I said, this goes to everything from data-driven machine learning models to digital twins, mechanistic, or everything in between, hybrid models. The idea is to use these models to predict outcomes before running experiments. And then, for example, in our case, we can simulate how changes in the process parameter affects productivity and quality of our unit
mm,
operation before we test that out in the lab. Some of the examples, for example, we're using things like active learning, Bayesian optimization to zero in on optimal conditions without exhaustive experimentation. And by using, predictive modeling, digital twins, we can simulate different scenarios and predict how the process will behave at manufacturing scale to tolerate variability, which makes tech transfer scale up more precise and helps us to optimize our process better. And there are, hopefully in the future, I'll do a more detailed presentation to present some of the studies. But I think all in all, we're moving in this, we're well underway, but there's so much more that we can do. I think we're just scratching the surface. Yeah, and it's definitely very exciting in that space. And another thing I see that should happen is our organizational structure, the way that we work. For example, we may need multidisciplinary teams consisting of, process scientists and engineers, modelers, and data scientists, automation engineers. We should all work together. The process scientists have the knowledge, we bring the problem. But then we will need our data scientists and engineers, modelers to solve that problem. So that means, we should have new skill sets. Process scientists may have to be more knowledgeable in data science, and data scientists might need to understand bioprocess fundamentals better. And yeah, so this calls for more open-minded. We should just be more open-minded and more curious, and commit to continuous learning.
Thank you. That's a great discussion. And I think you're very right. I'm just looking at the timer here, telling that, we have a few minutes left. But I think it's great that you mentioned about data quality, because in many industries, in fact, people experience the necessity of well thought through experiments, well thought through study design before they actually venture in the data collection. I've heard it several times from the colleagues I've met from who run biobanks or work in biobanks. It's the same situation. They have many samples from the past, and some of them over 20 years and more. But the data collected from there was designed for the studies at that time, and it doesn't suit for analysis now. So from that perspective, many industries, like pharmaceutical industries, one of them, focusing that on study design that will be more embracive, could think through the details that would help out with modeling, with using the data in a purposeful way, meaning design new molecule, understanding disease and so forth, or actually seeing how the drug affects the participant, and looking at the samples from that perspective. So different ways, but you're absolutely right. Data, not complexity, completeness is the key for success, and also for long term, not just for current studies, but also for long term learning within organization or beyond that. So I would like with that to thank very much for your participation today. I think we have a minute or two. You can add maybe a few more if you wish to the viewers, and for comments, and then we can wrap up.
Yeah, so thank you once again for having me. I think overall, we touched upon the topics like going from drug development in general, and more specifically for CMC as a general introduction of how AI is accelerating discovery and development. And I think the next decade will belong to the teams that fully modernize the way that we work, to the next generation. We should just start with the end in mind, right? To modernize the way we work. Imagine how things are gonna be, 5-10 years down the road, right? With all these efforts, all these new companies coming up, which are digital and AI native, how we're gonna, remain competitive in that space. And as I said, we should always be more open-minded, more curious, and keep learning, and so that we can get innovative medicines and vaccines to patients faster.
Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you for joining today. Viewers, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Today we did it differently. I didn't mention, it's more like podcast style. It was Angela's suggestion, and I really enjoyed that format. So hopefully we'll see more. And as Angela mentioned, maybe we'll see her with a presentation about her study in the near future. It would be fantastic to see examples of like what we discussed today, more in highlight general terms into more specifics, how it's applied and how it works. So thanks again, and Happy New Year, and see you again very soon. The next video planned next week, Tuesday, Wednesday. So stay tuned. Okay, bye for now. Thank you, Angela, again, and to the viewers, bye for now.